How y'all doing? So I've lived across the street for 13 years and in the Asheville area for 30. I never got a letter saying there was a meeting at 7 o'clock. I came over here right out of the garden. I manage the Elder and Sage Community Garden. We're in our 8th summer. So I'm curious, what is a stakeholder? Tell me what a stakeholder is. Is it the amount of money we have in our pocket, the amount of property we own? I'm just asking because this business improvement district seems to really rely on the moneyed classes. There's a lot more of us out there that live in this city. I remain suspicious about the business improvement district in that proposal. I would love to hear from all these folks who have come. Thank you. Also, I echo the concern. It weighs heavy on my heart every day, the genocide in Gaza, and we must not put aside our responsibility as citizens of this United States. International law is being violated every single day. Human rights are being violated. People are starving. We are here. You have power. Speak out. We cannot allow this to go silently by. I'm also concerned about I'm concerned about a lot of things, a whole lot of things. But I go out in the garden every day and open that gate to the people that come through, and many tourists come through and support us with their dollar bills here and there. We buy the soil, we fix the boxes, we paint, we clean, we plant, we beautify downtown Asheville in a way that our residents, our people that are down here working every day to make it pretty, we're not asking you for money, millions of dollars for this or that. And the firemen that climb up the stairs in the building I live in with all that heavy equipment, whenever they're called in, give them a raise for God's sake. I'm really kind of weary from working in the garden all day today, and I'm not waiting until 7, but please don't privatize downtown and give it over to an unelected body that may not at all represent the people that live and work downtown. Democracy is at stake on so many fronts. Be careful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's Bonfilio. So I am with the other folks who wanted to express their disappointment with the changing around of the agenda today. I'm a service worker. I'm lucky enough to have had most of the day off, so I practiced my public comment to my cat like 6 or 7 times. So he gets to hear more about what I think of the BID than you do today. I do want to share that I'm a business leader in the community. I manage and run a brewery. I think the BID is bad for business. I think it polices the very people who we are interested in having come through our doors. I wish I could say more, but I will leave it to all these folks who have been waiting hours and hours. Thank you for being here. I do want to also express in the general comment that this meeting has been disturbingly pro-cop. I want to remind us that it's us who keep ourselves safe. I want to express support for Kim Roney's, Councilwoman Roney's heart bullet points. I've seen that work in other cities, and I'm excited about the public actually being provided the services we need. I think a city where everyone is safe is where we all have the resources to thrive and are not policed, whether that is by APD or by private rent-a-cops that the businesses are hiring with public money. While we're doing general, I would also say I support a ceasefire in Gaza and the Southside Community Farm. Thank you so much.
Well, I don't really have any planned comments, but I figured we have some time to kill here while we're waiting. And I just want to say, there's so many people in this community that I love. Firefighters, thanks for what you do. I hope they pay you more because you deserve it. yeah, also, I don't know if you guys know anyone at HACA, but you guys really need to save Southside Community Farm. That's really important. And for folks who don't know, there's a meeting about that tomorrow, I believe at 7 p.m. But I think what's happening here tonight really demonstrates that you don't care about hearing the voices of the people. This is something I figured out like a while ago because I've come to talk to you quite a lot over time. And everything about this whole process was difficult to navigate. I mean, you said we need to be here at 3:30. Most people who are working like a 9-to-5 type job are not going to be able to access it. And now you've moved the comment back to 7 p.m. You kind of make up rules along the way. We don't even know how long we're going to be able to talk for, how many people are going to get to speak for how long. You keep saying we can't clap, which I know Esther loves to. I'm not sure where she is. You know, that's a First Amendment violation, just to be clear. You started the meeting by just lining up a bunch of cops, which is super intimidating, especially considering how many civil liberties violations you have piling up against your officers, considering the allegations of abuse by David Zach, who just left APD after he got in trouble. And where is he now? Now we have Mike Lamb in charge, who's also being sued. So I just want to, I guess, keep talking while I'm allowed to, and let you know that, yeah, we can see that who you're listening to, and that's the voices of the rich. And I love to see what Asheville Food and Bev is doing in our community. There's tons of grassroots organizing happening here. We are keeping each other safe on a regular basis, despite the violence from APD. And, you know, the way that you all handle, you know, ignoring everyone's requests about the ceasefire resolution, which I obviously also support, has been really disappointing. You're not even talking about it as a council. Also, this idea that you're going to both sides this public comment by not actually reflecting, you know, who all is here to speak and making us say in advance what our position is absolutely ridiculous. And you, like, that's nothing about this is democratic. I want to live in a world where we actually have a democracy, where all of our voices actually matter, and you all are not providing that.
Since we're kind of wasting time, I'll just go ahead and talk about the bid. I want to talk about the intersection between police and fire salaries and panhandling, of all things. What the city is doing right now is squelching political speech, so therefore, these guys don't get to go out on downtown and panhandle and show people that they are broke and need more money. When you squelch the free speech rights of one type of people, panhandling, guess what? You guys also squelch free speech of everybody. And one of the things about this bid, also known as bullshit in deep, there you go, thank you, is it's going to privatize a public space so that a certain number of unelected officials get to decide who gets to speak in downtown. Guess what, folks? The First Amendment don't work that way. When you squelch the free speech rights of one type of people, like myself, who was, you know, entertaining the tourists, making some amount of money on it, and it was a job, it was a struggle, but now I got arrested twice for impeding traffic. The police department, they don't arrest you for free speech, what you're saying, they arrest you for some other stuff, to make it look like you're really violating the law when you're not, when they're really arresting you for the content of your speech. And when you do that, guess what? The police and fire department guys, they're scared of going out there and promoting their own point of view. We're out here panhandling because the city's not paying us. It's a form of political speech. And the Supreme Court's already ruled the fact that panhandling is protected free speech. And right now, the city's police department are actually working in their own against their own best interests to squelch free speech when they could be out there showing people that they need more money. And, I'm just going to kill time here and just try to get some kind of coherence. But I want to talk a little about the benefits of panhandling. We're citizens. We pay taxes. I pay $500 taxes on the panhandling income I made last year. And panhandling is actually good for business because instead of
Thank you. Okay, the timer.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm here to ask you to vote against the proposed bid. I think we all understand what this is really about, the expanding housing and poverty crisis in this country. It's simply not good for business to have tourists and customers confronted with poverty. It puts them off their meal. A group of business owners have been lobbying y'all to do something. After that clumsy attempt to expand criminalization of poverty last year, this is the new attempt. Set up a private, unelected board and make it their problem. Give them the police power and wash your hands of it. I remember Mayor Mannheimer eagerly explaining she had no control over the TDA. We can't blame y'all for that monstrous waste of taxpayer dollars, pimping our city out across the nation, filling our streets with bachelor parties. Maybe that scenario has become convenient. They do the dirty work, and you get to blame the NCGA. It's hard to imagine why else a group of Democratic lawmakers would be trying to privatize basic city services. I've seen the propaganda campaigns saying this is an attempt to help the homeless by connecting them with resources. The problem is there are no resources. We have no Medicaid expansion. We barely have a public housing authority. I trust council is aware that you can't currently apply for housing. You can fill out a pre-application, an absurd application for the application, to get on a wait list an unknown time in the future. With the new head of HACA busy trying to evict a community farm, this seems unlikely to change. So please stop wasting resources on attempting to move the homeless along when they have nowhere to go. Focus resources on improving the situation, like the community paramedic teams. If you want to connect people to resources, Pisgah Legal Services is doing a lot of work there. There are many organizations already in town attempting to accomplish these goals. Councilmember Kim Roney has a number of positive ideas. I would encourage you to explore those. Please just do not saddle our city with another unelected private board sterilizing our city. The unique character of Asheville, the Appalachian character, will definitely be crushed if you if you give this power to a private board of business owners to take control of our city. Thank you.
What up, council? Nothing about the bid addresses fundamental human needs to survive that many people in Asheville are struggling to attain. Healthcare, living wages, affordable housing, and education, just to name a few. I feel that should be City Council's main focus before approving a private tax that only addresses the needs of a few. With the main marketing and budget focused around clean and safe, there's no clear definition on what clean and safe actually means. My initial reaction to a board that isn't publicly appointed is clean for who and safe for who. I don't believe they have everyone in mind when pitching a clean and safe downtown. I'm worried that it means cleansed of people they deem unworthy of taking up space, which usually points to marginalized communities. This all sounds too familiar of Asheville's painful history of breaking up and pushing out thriving Black communities through redlining, allowing a small group of people that are only concerned with protecting their property investments will continue to have dire consequences to our beloved community who are the heart and soul of this town. With so much hateful rhetoric toward our houseless neighbors, I'm afraid they'll be some of the most harmed, creating significant barriers to exiting homelessness. The bid blurs the lines between private and public space without the voice of our entire community to support it. I'm curious of how many pro-bid organizations have tried to work collectively to tend to their needs, and if so, do they have any proof? like creating their own self-funded collective, essentially to do the work of a bid, but funding will be on a voluntary basis and not through mandatory property tax surcharges, including voluntary fundraising efforts that are meant to invigorate downtown. Downtown is everyone's downtown, and we all deserve to navigate how we care for it.
Hey, City Council. My name is Jordan Garman. I'm a native of Western North Carolina, a local business owner, and a resident of Buncombe County for over 10 years. I'm here today to ask you to vote no on the upcoming Business Improvement District vote. I believe that the bid proposal is simply the wrong tool to address many of the city's needs. Creating another unelected board to oversee the use of our tax dollars is not the answer. A tax increase will inevitably fall on the most vulnerable in our community. In a city in which finding affordable housing and a well-paying job is already difficult, the tax burden of such a proposal will inevitably fall on renters and small businesses. The implementation of such a proposal will create yet another roadblock for the most needy and marginalized in our community. The bid proposal, while being promoted as a tool to improve the safety, hospitality, and maintenance of the city, is yet another way the city is trying to push the most vulnerable in the city out of sight, increase police presence, and create a private, unelected security team to roam our streets. Vote no for the bid proposal. Please focus our tax dollars and your attention on real solutions. Please focus your energy on expanding paramedicine with qualified behavioral support specialists, secure living wages for the city public works and sanitation staff, and not creating another unaccountable board. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hannah Gibbons. I'm one of the worker owners of So True Seed, a small employee-owned business within downtown limits, and I'm here representing on our behalf. We stand firmly against the Business Improvement District. There are major issues with the lack of research and outreach done by the City Council and the Chamber of Commerce that has taken place in preparation for this meeting. However, we would rather focus on the realities of what a bid would actually look like in Asheville. We take pride in being part of and contributing to our local economy, as we have been for the past 13 years. And as Asheville's only seed company, operating in a city that claims to value local food and agriculture so highly, we are an asset to the city and the downtown environment. The cost of living and working in Asheville has risen exponentially over the last several years. Last year, we made the decision to re-sign our lease on Haywood Street, though we've already outgrown the space that we're in because of the extreme lack of affordable business rental spaces in the city. And with only 8 full-time employees, we are still working to be able to provide health insurance benefits while simultaneously keeping wages high enough to accommodate the yearly rise in the cost of living in Asheville. We have concerns that the additional tax will make it more expensive for our small business to continue to grow and operate out of this city, let alone leave affordable housing options for renters that would live within the bid or even outside of it, as the bid will most definitely contribute to further gentrification of Asheville and the surrounding areas, as it has in other cities. Additionally, our business sits within a large houseless community, and the city has long been absent in its role of providing resources for our neighbors. In our request for support, the city has only offered extra police patrols, which we are not in favor of. We strongly oppose an additional tax that will allow for increased and privatized policing and surveillance of our neighbors. Instead, we continue to stand by our community's call for affordable housing and resources for our houseless neighbors, all of which would be a better use of taxes paid by city residents. This whole process has lacked transparency to business owners and residents of Asheville, besides the few of those involved and in support of the process, and should be slowed to a halt until collecting more feedback and data. Thank you.
Council members, my name is Susan Griffin. I've been a downtown resident and property owner for 20 years. I was a co-founder of DARN. I was on the ADA board for years, and I was co-chair of the previous 2013 bid committee. I'm asking you to vote no on this proposal before you today. It has too many unresolved and underdeveloped elements, too little real community input, a false sense of urgency to get it done. A bad bid is worse than no bid at all, and here's where this bid fails. A bid should be formed by a consortium representative of all stakeholders within the bid boundaries. This bid is a chamber-initiated effort. The steering committee is composed of chamber members, residents, tenants, workers, Other stakeholders have not been invited to join this this conversation. Successful bids are collaborative. All parties should contribute. This includes the city and county. In addition to acknowledging the untaxed value of their properties and the benefits a bid could provide to those entities and their workers, a contribution solidifies the joint effort needed to be productive. If the chamber wants to be part of bid management, they should be contributing financially as well. This plan even proposes reimbursing them with taxpayer dollars for the consultants' fees they incurred, which is just wrong on so many levels. We can appreciate they brought the conversation back to the table, but that was their decision and should not be a taxpayer burden. Interestingly, the report produced is virtually identical to the reports in the public record produced by the 2013 bid committee for free. The proposed ambassador program has some major flaws. Ambassador programs are only as strong as the resources they call on. There's a big gap between our current baseline service level and what is needed to make this work. Specifically, a staffed downtown police force, and more important, a 24/7 community responder program equipped to deal with the very real problems of mental health and associated behavioral issues, drug abuse, and houselessness. Without these core resources to call on, the ambassador program is just an expensive PR stunt. It may fool tourists, but it's not going to bring meaningful change to downtown residents and workers. What should you do? You should send this plan back to the drawing board. This time, make sure all downtown voices are heard. Appoint the initial bid board so that we can engage those who will be advising us how to spend our tax dollars. Open meetings to all constituents. Let the board come back in 6 months with a plan that might be workable and responsive to the actual problems we face downtown. We need better, you can do better. A good bid could be worth the wait. Vote no, not now. Also, since I have a little time, you might find it really interesting to read what the bid proposal is specifically for ambassadors. It's scary, there's a lot of subjectivity. Approach people who look different, approach people who might not belong. It's a very, very scary part of this bid. Thank you.
Asheville doesn't need a bid. Asheville doesn't want to bid. You know this because of the decisive failure of the 2012 bid attempt. I suspect this might also be part of the reason you gave only today for public comment. Regardless, this does limit the ability of working citizens to speak about it. This is in direct defiance of the City of Asheville Comprehensive Plan, which states, quote, "In general, solicit the maximal amount of public input possible when implementing policies," end quote. It's hard not to view today's scheduling chicanery as a show of bad faith, which actually sets the tone perfectly for discussing the proposed bid because it is fundamentally a bad faith proposal. It would bloat private funds that don't need it by leeching off the people trying to survive in this city that grows increasingly unlivable. The bid proposes a private security outfit with no accountability, designed to enforce what amounts to punishing public evidence of poverty. We are certain that these attempts at safety will fail because bids across the country have racked up records of civil and human rights abuses. One author of Asheville's bid proposal, block by block, is already under suit for labor law violation. Asheville is our home, not a mall, not a portfolio. And the seats you currently occupy are reserved for public servants, not power brokers, not realtors. People live here, and the bid is explicitly designed to exploit us. It is gentrifying by nature, and so it cannot be amended, it cannot be reformed. We demand that you scrap the bid entirely. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Calvin Herrera. I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of myself as an Asheville resident, as a downtown worker, as well as on behalf of Bob and Om, a small downtown business that I work at, with full support from its owner. We've always aimed to be a community-oriented establishment, and I'm here with my coworkers asking you to support your community by voting against this bid. To us, hospitality looks like cooking with love and sharing food affordably and accessibly. With the implementation of this bid, hospitality looks like weaponizing people's fear with our tax dollars and creating a force to further police our streets accountable only to private interests. This type of security does not protect the interests of those that spend the most time downtown, those that live and work here. I would argue that rather than protecting, it targets those that are most vulnerable. Working in the Grove Arcade, I've seen what it looks like to have a presence that serves to give people this sense of safety that they're claiming. Have a private security force, protecting people from the threat of discomfort that you might feel seeing someone who faces actual threats, of hunger, homelessness. They've never made me feel more safe. They've made me uncomfortable. They've escalated situations or had to hand them off to APD. This, I think, would be reflected with the bid. And I question how this is hospitality, and if it is, then for who? And I ask you to vote against the bid. Please don't use our money for services that we didn't ask for and we don't want.
I've been seeing a lot of recurring themes, and I hope that you sort of take into account each time you hear these, not as the repetition of an idea, but as the coming together of a group of people with ideas that reflect one another. And I want to repose the question, to whose safety are you referring when you say you're providing safety? To whose security? Not those most at risk. Not security for those with no food. Not security for those with no housing. Giving support to people who continue to make Asheville less affordable and using our tax dollars to do it is a gross misappropriation of taxpayer money. Is a place that turns their backs on the people who are most vulnerable, really hospitable. And I would argue that the people this bid is helping are those who are already the safest. It's those who are already the most secure. It's members of this community or landlords in this community, people who have money here but not lives here, right? Given however many $1 million that you are considering putting towards this bid, like how many people could you house? Like how much trash could you clean up if you paid people hazard pay to pick up biohazards like needles and had them walking around because they care about our community and want to see a safer and cleaner place? What is more important to this council than the lives and safety of the people who exist here? Not only those with spending power. And what is something you could do that would actually help? What does security look like? A place to sleep and food. This council is responsible for the interests of Asheville's civilians, the renters, not the landlords who collect increasingly more profit while driving more and more people closer to poverty, closer to homelessness. There's been a 12% increase in homelessness from 2022 to 2023 in America. What protections does this city provide for those who have been continuously overlooked and underserved? Helping this community is not a monetary project. The amount of money put into the system that created the conditions of exploitation leading to poverty will never achieve another outcome. This bid does not prioritize the safety of the community's most vulnerable members. Investing in your community does not look like funneling more money into the pockets of those who view the city as an opportunity to make even more money here without giving back to those negatively affected by the proposed bid. You would just be repeating a cycle of exploitation, and I really encourage you to think about the will of the people. How many people showed up here today, took time out of their day, took excessive amounts of time out of their day, moved their schedules around, moved it around again because we care.
Thank you.
We really care. Thank you.
Next.
All right, let's mix it up. I'm in support because let's not mince words. We know the main point of bid is to reduce the downtown homelessness population and increase the area's attractiveness to tourists. The proponents of bid say they'll do this using ambassadors to connect the less fortunate to resources. This is exactly what needs to happen because everyone knows homelessness could be solved if we just told homeless people to engage with resources. They clearly have no idea that they exist, and I guess they're stupid. My husband, he's a doctor. I see him spend hours trying to place patients anywhere that they can get a place to stay after they've gotten treated in the hospital. He does this for hours after his shift is already ended. What the physicians like him and social workers can't accomplish would finally get done if we just had publicly funded, privately directed security, ambassadors to help. Some people say we can We can only clean the streets through collective liberation. They say we need affordable housing, good public infrastructure, workers' rights and protections, but I know it'd be much easier to hand our tax dollars over to local oligarchs. Plus, no one is talking about how great it would be for the business owners in charge of the bid. When they manage to harass the homeless people out of downtown, then it'll be the rest of Asheville's problem. Local competition in other neighborhoods will really suffer from that, and that will be great for their bottom dollar. If other parts of Asheville want to be as clean as our future downtown, then they should use the tax dollars for private security too. In conclusion, this policy is nice and undemocratic, and democracy sucks. That's why it's perfect to hear your constituents' opinions just once before the vote. Vote yes for taxes, for public taxes in private hands with no public oversight.
Hello, I'm Julia. I work downtown. I didn't come with a speech prepared. I just had a question. I met someone recently who works in IT, traveling IT, and he's in town currently because the city of Asheville recently paid out. I believe the number he gave me was $65 million to update the body cam technology that we have in our police on APD in their vehicles. And I'm just more confused on why we would spend all of this money and then spend more money to bring in an external private police force to downtown. I just don't understand unless we wanted to have someone without oversight or without accountability held to them to harass the minorities living in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwomen. And I don't envy you in your decision-making here because it is a big decision. I have a few points that I'd like to make. And I think, will this raise about $1 million, do I hear, annually from taxes? And I think a lot of people, a lot of small local businesses will be harmed by this. Many of them are already paying taxes up to their ears, and to just add more taxes to that will be like an avalanche in downtown Asheville, because that will affect the tenants who live here. When the taxes go up for the landlords, the tenants pay more money. And a lot of them are just getting by as it is. It is said that it'll be dominated mainly by wealthy property owners. The board will be chosen by the chamber in secret and with other business groups. Uniformed patrols will have surveillance, and they will be dealing with things that they consider out of the ordinary. But in Asheville, everything is out of the ordinary. So, you know, we have protests, and I am one of the regular protesters. And we feel that we need to continue to have the freedom to protest when it's necessary. And I stand with the Asheville food and beverage workers who are here tonight. And I figure that they have looked at this issue thoroughly. And so with them, I say to vote against this proposal. Lastly, I want to bring up the homeless in our area. I've known homeless people who do much of the work that the safety ambassadors would do. I see them picking up litter. I see them scolding people for being messy. These people do it for no charge, just donations. And I kind of relate it to the Gazans over with the Israel and Gaza fight. That Israel moves them south, then they move them middle, and then they move them back north, and they always come back. They're not going to leave their homes. And I feel that way with a lot of our homeless population. They are also resilient, and they will come back, and they will be part of the community just like you and I are. So I really hope that you'll consider this very seriously and decide to vote not now. just like you said
thank you.
in 2020, 2012, not now.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ben Williamson. I'm a business owner, been in Asheville 21, 22 years. I'm also the executive director of the Asheville Poverty Initiative. We operate 12 Baskets Cafe in West Asheville, and we're honored to serve a cross-section of the local community, but we're also honored to serve primarily folks experiencing poverty and a number of people experiencing homelessness every day at the cafe. So we're very interested in the bid, and I'm not here to particularly argue for or against it. Really just mostly concerned with the safety ambassador piece that I've seen in the proposal, and I think a lot of the folks that in the community that I work with every day are concerned about that. But I also want to lift up an existing entity that we have in the city and the county that, in our view, does an incredible job. The Community Responder, Community Paramedic Program, for the work that we do, has been absolutely invaluable, very professional, responsive, supportive, clearly trauma-informed, clearly trained in de-escalation. They've been a training resource, and they're incredibly relational. When they're not on calls, they're in the garden, they're at A-Hope, they're at Haywood, they're building relationships so that when they show up to a particular call, they're non-threatening, they're respected, and they're able to quickly and immediately connect folks to appropriate resources. My only concern with the community paramedic program is as many times as we've used them and relied on them and benefited from their support, we've called them and no one's answered because we know that they're not a fully, they're not 24/7, 365 yet. So I worry about safety ambassadors reacting to a situation and making a call, community paramedics maybe not being available at that point. We're worried about the default being a police response for a health issue, such as mental health or addiction or first aid, anything that involves police to an issue that's not a criminal issue concerns us. So whether or not the bid progresses or how the monies are used, we certainly hope that the community paramedic and community responder program, which so many people I know here support and are proud of, is elevated to the top of that conversation and potentially more fully integrated into what this might look like. If the bid does not pass, we hope that the program continues to be lifted up and potentially expanded to support all of us here in the city. So I appreciate your listening and your consideration and all your hard work. Thank you.
Members of City Council, my name is Patrick Conan, and I'm a 17-year resident of Asheville. I'm speaking to you today as the director of Sunshine Labs, a local organization that works with a coalition of community partners to advance transparency and increase public participation in the work of our local government. We issued an open letter titled "Lift the Lid Off the Bid," highlighting concerns with public participation, transparency, and accountability in the current proposal for a downtown bid. We are submitting a list of individuals and organizations that have endorsed our letter as part of the public record, and I've provided those to the city clerk. While Sunshine Labs is not taking a position as to whether downtown needs a bid in general, we are deeply concerned with the proposal the chamber has put forward, and we encourage council to vote no on what is on the table today. The proposed governance structure allocates 9 of 15 seats to property owners, with no seats set aside specifically for downtown workers or small businesses. If the city is going to allocate seats on a bid board, they should be given to voices that struggle to be heard in the work of local government, not those who own the most property. The proposal also requires that the Chamber Steering Committee nominate the initial board, and the board itself would nominate replacements when vacancies occur. This proposed governance structure would create a bid board that is structurally designed to resist change, and we fear it would be unaccountable to both council and the people of Asheville. The Chamber and Downtown Association are responsive to their members, and this proposal reflects the wants and needs of certain voices. However, we feel that this conversation and this process has not adequately considered the perspectives offered by the diverse group of workers, business owners, and others that built up downtown Asheville. I encourage council to listen closely to other folks who have signed up to speak today and pay close attention to those who are concerned by this proposal or feel their voices have not been heard in the process to this point. This process feels rushed to reach a July 1st deadline, and I feel strongly it would be a mistake for council to push forward a flawed and incomplete proposal just because the chamber said so. We strongly encourage council to allow additional opportunities for public comment at the May and June meetings. You certainly have the ability to allow additional comment if you want to hear from more people. If what you're hearing suggests that this proposal needs more work, then by all means, take the time to continue to have these conversations, and let's make sure that a bid is something downtown needs, and if we do it, get it right, even if that pushes these conversations into the next year. Thank you.
Good evening. In every city where they try to sell the idea of a business improvement district, the consultants lean on the idea that bids are inevitable, logical extensions of urban progress. We've heard there are thousands of bids in North America. Every major city in North Carolina has one, et cetera, et cetera. This sounds compelling, but the truth is that there are over 4,500 cities in the United States, and the vast majority don't have bids. Across the country, communities are rejecting this form of neoliberal urbanism and its noxious track record. I'm going to name a few places that have rejected bids since Asheville last considered adopting one in 2012. Alexandria, Virginia, Birmingham, Alabama, Hilo, Hawaii, Kansas City, Missouri, Norman, Oklahoma, Jackson Heights, New York, Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, twice, Rochester, New York, twice, Rutherford, New Jersey, Sarasota, Florida, St. Paul, Minnesota, and St. Louis, Missouri. These are just a handful of places where bids have been rejected or established and then disbanded. And here in Asheville, we have our own history of skepticism towards this nonsense. Rather than being a new idea, the bid is an extension of an old idea. The idea that downtown exists for and should be controlled by commercial landowners and the rich. This is a belief at the heart of Asheville's shameful period of urban renewal, in which business leaders and city officials conspired to strip Black residents of community and wealth in order to transform downtown into a tourist's playground. And it was the belief at the heart of the 1974 campaign by business leaders, again, to evict residents, bulldoze the city center, and build a 22-acre shopping mall. A proposal that was thankfully defeated by community activists. Honestly, it is shocking, given this history, that the wealthiest few continue to set the agenda at the expense of our entire community. I urge you to vote down this plutocratic scheme, no private security, no private control of public funds, no new tax burden for renters and small businesses, no bid.
Good evening, council members, and thank you for your stamina in listening to all of this commentary. I'd like to take this all back to first principles. I believe we've been taught that government derives its legitimacy from the consent of the governed, and in a democracy, we elect representatives to enact our interests, and we are able to hold them accountable through elections. One of the primary functions of government is taxation. You may recall that we had a revolution about that. The slogan was "No taxation without representation." I put it to you that it is undemocratic to collect taxes and spend them without the governance of elected representatives. The bid, like the TDA, is an undemocratic entity using the power of government to raise funds for the benefit of an unelected few who disperse them without direct accountability to the citizenry. By the way, there's an alternative. Those persons or entities that want to improve downtown could voluntarily form an association, contribute voluntarily to it, and spend those funds however they see fit, legally, without participation of government. Government does not have to fund such an entity. Those interests could do it for themselves. In fact, I put it to you that the TDA should also be such an association, voluntarily funded by those interested in promoting our region and their businesses. The taxation power of government should not be arrogated by private interests. And by the way, as it stands, according to these suggestions, someone could actually sit both on the TDA and the BID, which is kind of a scary concept if you think about it. In sum, council should not allow its taxation and budgeting power to be usurped. This is your job to decide how taxation funds are spent. You were elected. A BAD board will not be elected. Please claim your power. Thank you for your attention this evening.
Hi again. I had some other comments prepared, but I actually want to address a comment that I heard earlier from one of our council members in relation to this. It was, I'm not in a place to turn away anyone helping. And when I think of this, I think of my friends who are charged with felony littering for for trying to help unhoused people in our community. I think of how they are surveilled. People who are distributing food on a weekly basis to unhoused people are being surveilled by Asheville Police Department. We are turning away help from people on a consistent basis and actually criminalizing them for trying to help. I'm not even sure why we are looking at this piece of the puzzle when we have much more pressing needs on the table. And I'm really disturbed, again, with how we put the order, you know, trying to both sides this issue, is that, like, the difference on the two sides of this are people who have wealth and power to gain and maintain, and people on the other side who have livelihoods to maintain when their survival is at stake in our community. So I think we've heard this theme of what safety is and for whom, but it is a tale as old as time to have oppressors and the oppressed and the people who are protecting property versus the people who are protecting people. And I will not allow a false equivalency here, because protecting people absolutely comes first. The mistrust that exists around this, the intentions behind it, are because we witness the outcomes of it every day. We know what gentrification has already done to our community. We know what those with wealth and power have already done to our community. We know how hard it is to be able to afford to live here. And we see the results of that every day. And that's enforced through a police system that criminalizes people for not being able to do that. It reminds me of our maybe soon to be next president, who said they're very good people on both sides. That's what that kind of language reminds me of. We know what happens when we concentrate power in the hands of the elites, because we've seen it so many times before. I vehemently agree with funding the community paramedics program. You all have opportunities to do this stuff where we already are without implementing this BID. And we could add basic necessities like more trash cans downtown, places that we can safely dispose of needles, adding more trash, and adding, you know, just more resources for people in the community. There's nowhere for people to go here, and I have no reason to believe that this won't just lead to more policing of the same people you've already been cracking down on.
Thank you. Good evening, y'all. My name is Jen Hampton. I work for Just Economics, but I'm also the chair of Asheville Food and Beverage United. And my comments tonight are on behalf of AFBU members who are asking you to please reject the bid. We believe that our community resources could be put to better use. The bid promises safety and sanitation above and beyond the services provided by the city, but we don't even have enough staff in Public Works to provide baseline services. And this is largely due to the fact that we don't pay these folks enough to live here. Maybe if we raise taxes to ensure recruitment and retention for these positions instead of the bid, we would be able to provide the baseline services. We could also expand services like the community paramedics, who have uniquely qualified behavioral health and peer support services. We've been told that the ambassadors will be making a living wage. And while we think it's right, of course, to pay all workers a living wage, the city of Asheville is not even paying our public employees a living wage. Not even our firefighters and other frontline workers are being paid enough to live in the community they serve. There also are concerns over the governance structure of the bid, as we've heard, due to the fact that there are 0 seats set aside for downtown service workers. These are the people who will be most impacted by the bid, yet they will have no voice in the decision-making process. And speaking of the governing board for the proposed bid, this will basically be another board like the TDA, made up of unelected people with 0 accountability to the community. The company hired to help develop this bid proposal is currently facing numerous lawsuits around their labor practices. We don't need that in Asheville. We can and should do better for the people who live and work here. Without the workers who take care of our community and support the tourism economy, this is all going to fall apart anyways. If we keep pushing the working class out of Asheville, we will not be able to sustain the level of tourism we have now, let alone future growth. So again, we ask you to reject the bid and instead prioritize things like paying our frontline workers a living wage and to partner with the county on the community paramedics program. That is what our community truly needs. We do not need to prioritize our public services. Thank you.
I don't really have anything prepared. I just wanted to speak to you guys as neighbors. My name's Rebecca Hecht. I've lived here for 30 years. I came here in a van full of hippies and dogs on ropes. I've also been a business owner for 20 years downtown. I've owned 3 businesses. I recognize that it was a privilege to go from coming here in a van to being a business owner. And in this past year, I was able to purchase my retail space. So I'm also a property owner downtown. I know that this makes me a stakeholder today, but I would argue that 30 years ago, when I came here in a van full of hippies, I was a stakeholder then. I would argue that the people that I fed at a soup kitchen 3 days a week for many years, I was a stakeholder then, and the people that I fed were too. I find it disappointing that we're pitting this binary option of policing downtown or keeping it safe for everyone. I think that's a false idea. I was also on the Downtown Commission. I served on the Downtown Association Board, and I was one of the biggest cheerleaders of the bid subcommittee that I served on when it was proposed in 2013. At this time, I can no longer be a cheerleader for the bid proposal. I think there's too much gray area here. I would point to quoting some of the things that the bid ambassadors would do, and one thing that concerns me is to report anything out of the ordinary. Who decides what's out of the ordinary? I mean, is it out of the ordinary to protest? Is it out of the ordinary to feed people? Is it out of the ordinary to be dressed colorfully? I don't know. That seems very gray area to me. And who gets to choose what's out of the ordinary, and who is enforcing that? And then who will they call upon to enforce something out of the ordinary? This is so much gray area. I also have an issue with the fact that the chamber has put up $200,000 for this process and wants to be paid back. And they're not even required to pay in. They actually are not stakeholders, in my point of view. I don't want my self-imposed tax money being spent to chase around addiction and homeless and mental health issues. I think we do need around-the-clock community responders. If we were going to move forward with this bid, they should be working hand in hand with any ambassadors. And ambassadors should be people who are giving directions to my business, helping out our guests and visitors, maybe even walking people to their cars. But they can't do that if they're involved with mental health crises.
Anders,
It's hard walking up here after sitting so long. My name's Hunt Millett, and I'm part of a family that's had businesses and owned property here in Asheville for 5 generations. since the turn of the 19th century. We presently operate, or I presently operate the wine house downtown. And along with it, we have rental units and business rentals as well. We believe in diversity and affordability. We have tenants that are from Nepal, China, Ethiopia, residents that are African American, working class, and old white guys like me. I'm against this bid for a number of reasons that have already been stated, but primarily it's not fair in how the funding is centered on those that are in Asheville downtown paying these property taxes, and not for the entire county, in my opinion. Everybody gets to enjoy the good things that happen in the downtown area. Why put the burden of something like a bid with all of its gray areas on just those that are paying property taxes or business taxes in the city? I think the whole process is rushed. It feels like here we are doing a public comment, and then you'll have 2 more meetings where you have votes at each meeting, and then the darn thing would be implemented within days after the final vote, if you all see fit to vote on it. I hope you don't. I want to acknowledge the improvements and the positive aspects the City Council did since our last voting down of the bid in 2012. I look out the window of my business and I see much cleaner streets. The 2 different companies have been contracted to cleaning over those years. Both of them did a very good job, and I think continue to do a good job of cleaning up. And of course, there still are incidences of things that are going to be messy and you have to respond to. That's going to happen no matter what. The other thing is, I don't feel that we have the bid would not have the ability to walk everybody that needs walking home from work. There's just no way that could happen. I don't also consider our streets to be that unsafe. I'm happy to have people, both employees and patrons of our business, who seem to find a way to come and enjoy and not feel unsafe. It would be very bad that if they came to a situation where it was so unsafe that they could go. Anyway, thank you.
Hello, my name is Vicki Meath. I'm the Director of Just Economics, and I'm here tonight because I don't think the city should be considering a tax increase for the bid when we are not paying city staff a living wage. I have followed the city budgets process and appreciate City Council's robust conversation about living wages because we know that we need them. We currently live in a city that is among the highest, if not the highest, cost of living in the state, but with lower starting pay than Buncombe County or cities like Charlotte that start at $22 an hour. We currently have city staff that make nearly $10,000 less than what it would take to qualify for affordable housing for low, moderate income people that the city has subsidized at 80% area median income. We currently have vacancies within the city that prevent us from adequately meeting our core services, and those vacancies add stress to level and overworked feelings of middle management staff. We currently have firefighters who have to commute from Irwin, Tennessee or Spartanburg, South Carolina in order to afford housing on their salaries. We are currently losing staff and losing out on potential staff who simply can't afford to live here. I know this is a tough conversation, and this year we are talking about using fund balance to increase salaries, but we all know that this isn't a sustainable solution. There are really only 2 fiscally responsible ways to increase salaries beyond this year. Either cut services or increase taxes. In light of next year's tax revaluation, we will likely see the need to increase taxes for people all over the city. And I support raising taxes for the things that we need. We need staff for our core services, and those staff need to make a wage that they can live on. We have buildings that have maintenance deferred for too long, infrastructure needs that aren't currently funded, and we need many of the things that are proposed as part of the bond. We need to invest in transit as our city grows. We all know how desperately we need affordable housing. I do not see the same level of need for services that are suggested by the bid. While I do work in the proposed bid and am downtown at least 5 days a week, I live in West Asheville and will not directly have to pay the proposed tax for the bid. My question is, are the same property owners and renters in the proposed bid willing to have their taxes raised both for the things that we need and to fund core services, including potential increase in taxes next year during revaluation, an increase for the bonds, as well as the bid? If the answer is no, then you cannot support this bid.
Hello, my name is Courtney Roche. I'm a longtime Asheville resident, an organizer with the PSL, and most importantly, I am part of the working class. And I am out here with the majority of others tonight to speak out against this business improvement district. I won't go into what the bid could or should be, or the history of it being yet another tool of furthering gentrification, or ever privatizing public space, that it's a tool of further displacing the most poor and dispossessed in our city, or that the bid seems to be rushed through thanks to its big money backing, while reparations for the Black community languishes in committee, while a symbolic resolution to call for a ceasefire in Gaza was soundly rejected, while only hospitals run into the ground by capitalist drive for profit over patients. Shout out to NNU for fighting back though. No, what I want to talk about is what the working class, the workers of Asheville who make this town run, need and demand. Bids are set up under the guise to supposedly provide health, safety, and security, but the only way to provide safety, health, and security would mean these things: safe, healthy, and secure, good-paying jobs for everyone. Safe, healthy, and secure, affordable housing for all. Put real money into social goods, infrastructure, transportation, sanitation. That is what the workers of this city demand. To keep us safe, to keep visitors of this beautiful mountain safe, we must address the root economic causes of crime. Crimes of capitalism. Police, ambassadors, private security, whatever you want to call it, do nothing to prevent crime. As suggested at the beginning of this meeting, when applause was allowed, in violation of this council's own rules, police do not stop anything. They do not stop crime. They do not stop the biggest crime, which is theft of our wages by business owners, by capitalists, or by landlords from evicting tenants. People are on the street because housing is a for-profit business, not a social good. People turn to prostitution, drugs, and theft because good-paying jobs are basically non-existent, while costs of living skyrocket, which this additional bid tax would also increase. There is no safety in the bid for the people who live and work here. There's no health for us or security. In short, the bid was bad 10 years ago, and the bid is still bad in 2024. We say no to the bid. This issue is divisive because it makes the class division so clear that there is a minority of wealthy business owners and developers who want ever more private control over our public space. And to that, we say no. Fund people's needs and not the narrow interests of these capitalists.
Hey, my name is Elliot. I was homeless for about 10 years and only recently became stably housed about 5 years ago. And the reason I was homeless with my kid is because it is really fucking hard to make enough money to afford to live here. I grew up in Western North Carolina. I've been living in Asheville proper about 15 years, kind of back and forth, between here and Boone. And I'm currently a graduate student in the Master's in Public Health program at Mayheck. This will be my second master's degree. I also work for a statewide organization where I focus on homelessness data. And the reason I'm doing that work, again, is because it is really fucking hard to get out of homelessness. It is really hard to navigate the structures that exist, to make enough money to survive. And something that's been really alarming to me in these conversations around the need for a business improvement district and conversations that I see on Facebook and other comments people make is this increasing fear about homelessness. I will hear
someone say that they felt afraid because somebody asked them for money. And I have been downtown and had somebody walk up and ask to use my cell phone because his car broke down and his phone was dead and he just started a job at a hotel and I helped him jump his car. Like, it's not hard to help your neighbors, and there's been this increasing divide between people who have homes, who have jobs, who own businesses, and this fear of people who don't have access to housing. And one of the things it reminds me of, I don't know if y'all are following the Grants Pass versus Johnson case, but Brad, you definitely should be on top of that. Particularly, there's a lot, it's a Supreme Court case that's being heard right now over the criminalization of homelessness, specifically whether it's legal to arrest people for sleeping outside. And the distinction between like a baby taking a nap on a blanket, like that's obviously not a crime, but if a homeless person is taking a nap on a blanket, then that's a crime. And it mirrors the conversations that Asheville was having, well, Parks and Rec and like y'all, the police, about the criminalization of the felony littering defendants a couple of years ago, and whether existing in a park in a tent is a crime. In some conversations, I think Mike Lamb said something to City Council about only enforcing littering against homeless people. And so this is being heard by the Supreme Court, right? And it mirrors the conversations that we're having here. And I know a lot of people have already spoken about why this is a bad idea and who this is safe for. And, you know, I live in a house now, I have a good job, I'm getting more student loan debt, so I kind of sometimes can be a shining example of surviving homelessness, but it shouldn't be as hard as it was for me. I should not, everybody else who's living on the street shouldn't have to do everything that I did to get to this point. There aren't enough services. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is I've also worked downtown. I've worked in West Asheville, I worked at a couple of places downtown, and when I hear local business owners talk about trash and people sleeping outside, I remember coming into the businesses I worked for to open the store in the mornings. And sometimes there would be people sleeping in a doorway. And you know what you do? You say, hey, bud, I need to open the door. Can you move out of the way? Like, it's not hard to treat somebody like they are also your neighbor.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Council. My name is Nicole Lopez. I was born and raised in Asheville, and I grew up hanging around in our eccentric and vibrant downtown. I am here today to voice concerns about the proposed bid because I fear it will accelerate the gentrification that's turning my beloved hometown of weirdos into a playground for the wealthy. I'm concerned about the accountability and oversight of the bid. The makeup of the board proposed will function to further consolidate power in the hands of wealthy property owners. We need to ensure that small businesses, downtown renters, employees, yes, downtown workers, and community members are able to have a meaningful seat at this table. I'm extremely concerned about the door that the bid leaves open for the contracting of privatized security to police downtown Asheville. Privatized security forces would allow for an unaccountable, non-public force to police residents. Downtown should be an accessible space for everybody. I fear the impact that this will have, especially on the unhoused community. I'd like to echo what everybody else has said about that, as well as the First Amendment rights on citizens to assemble and protest, or anybody who just doesn't fit in. As somebody who grew up around here, I know just how, like, what a culture of freaks and weirdos we have here. That's part of what makes Asheville like the artsy place that we are. We should not be giving private security contractors or ambassadors, for that matter, discretion to police our residents and decide what is or is not acceptable. Instead, I would love to see the city fully resource and support the community paramedics and co-responder program so that we have trained behavioral health specialists who are qualified to support our neighbors in crisis 24/7. That seems like a baseline service to me for our entire community. Also, at its last meeting, Council was presented with the results of the Cease Harm Equity Audit and the Affordable Housing Plan. I wonder, is there any room to incorporate the findings from those two critical presentations and findings into the bid? It seems like it would really be a missed opportunity to have gotten that expertise and then not be able to apply that into whatever structure may come forth from a bid. It's also clear that the main motivation for the establishment of a bid is born of a public safety concern and based specifically on the premise that downtown requires additional services above and beyond the baseline. while I know that there's been a ton of discourse about downtown Asheville being unsafe, the Citizen Times recently reported that there's actually a bit of a mismatch between the rhetoric and the reality. When asked where the most dangerous places in the city are, the Asheville Police Department confirmed to the Citizen Times that despite the attention it was getting, downtown was not the area struggling the most with safety. I would hate to see us focus only on investing in downtown safety instead of investing in our entire community safety. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Patty Glazer, a 45-year resident of Asheville and also a downtown business and property owner. Although I sent an email to you folks that's similar, I offered this to the public for those who haven't heard this point of view, which represents that of many of the downtown property owners. I encourage you to address the fairness in funding of the bid. Despite having participated in consultant sessions at the Chamber of Commerce and in a recent virtual roundtable session hosted by the Asheville Downtown Association, and having read articles in various publications, I have not seen or heard discussions on the topic of the fairness of funding the bid. Whether one is for or against the idea of a bid and what it may or may not achieve, what is being proposed is not a fair distribution of the additional expense. It unfairly burdens downtown property owners for the benefit of all for services that the city should already be providing. 40% of property within the proposed bid area is owned by non-tax paying entities, city, county, churches, and other nonprofits. Downtown property taxes are already high compared to other parts of town or in the county. As currently proposed, the bid would be financed by additional taxes on downtown properties only, despite the fact that all might benefit. Tourists who visit downtown, the non-tax paying downtown entities, locals who work and play downtown, plus those who rent retail, office, or residential space in downtown who are not property owners. Rather than additionally burdening these same property owners who have weathered the storm through recessions and the pandemic, I would encourage the city to be creative in devising other means for collecting the additional funds, whether it's 1.2 million, 1.4 million, I've heard, to allocate to the downtown area for cleanliness and safety, city services that one would already expect from property taxes. Some of us have long-term local tenants in our buildings. By passing along these additional expenses, many would be priced out of downtown to be replaced by larger companies and chains. The tax burden needs to be shared within the whole metropolitan area and the TDA. If, per the Chamber of Commerce feedback, it then could not be called a bid due to regulations, fine. Gather the funds by casting a wider net and allocate greater funds towards improvements in the downtown area, an area which is a major economic draw to the region. Again, I welcome your input and feedback on addressing the issue of the fairness in funding the concept of a bid. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your time, City Council. My name is Erin Missandria. I work directly with our houseless community here in Asheville as a permanent supportive housing case manager. And I think when I first started reading about this bid proposal, my main focus is on the safety and dignity of our homeless community. And then I started reading more about this ambassador part of these bid programs. I think, and after sitting here for as long as we have been sitting here, I think my main issue with this kind of project and the money and the resources and the time that go in to this sort of thing, it seems very hollow to me. I think sitting here, it was interesting to start with the talk about South French Broad and the demolition of, this house and the safety issues in this neighborhood, which seemingly are primarily focused and centered around substance use disorder and, what people do when they're living with SUD. And then that circled into AFD not getting paid enough to do what they do. My the majority of the experience that I have with the AFD is that they're filling a gap that doesn't exist. You know, they're providing de-escalation, they're reversing overdoses, they are taking care of some of our folks who, you know, don't have the resources otherwise, and they're not getting paid enough. And then we circle back to this situation, this safety situation, and I think what we've been hearing mostly is that people are afraid and they want to feel safe here. And when I hear that and have been following this kind of like rhetoric, you know, I think that's focused on our houseless folks. And I think the problem is that, you know, we're not looking at the systemic issues, right? Like a bid is not going to solve the systemic issues that exist in this community. Substance use disorder, affordable housing, persistent serious mental health, those are all public health issues that we need to start focusing on and putting money into and putting time into, not like weird little people walking around downtown in brightly colored polo shirts who are not clinically trained. I watched a promo video for Block to Block for one of the ambassador positions, walking up to a street person with a walkie-talkie and calling somebody magically, and then they just appear. Like, what does that mean? You know, like, that is my fear, is that this is some sort of Band-Aid that people that are feeling fearful want to just slap on a situation that is exponentially complicated.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all. Thanks.
So, thanks for having me here tonight. I didn't really have a prepared speech. There were a lot of points made tonight from folks who can speak a lot more eloquently than I. But I did want to come because I'm probably one of the younger property owners in the proposed BID. I own properties right now on Wall Street and on Patton Avenue. And I'm staunchly against it, I'll just say. The BID effort, I think, is branded as local business owners taxing ourselves, but that's actually a lie. Everyone in the neighborhood or the proposed district, except for churches, will be required to pay under state law, and that money will go to the private fund, to the privately elected board for them to do whatever they want with it, including hiring polo-clad private security forces who, you know, who knows how well they're trained in de-escalation. So really what we're looking at is this is going to be a privatized mini government that's extracting $1.25 million a year out of taxes from the locals. And it seems very hurried. It seems incomplete. It seems like we're voting on something that a lot of the people that are going to be most impacted by this don't really have a full understanding about how this is going to be implemented. And yeah, I want to just say that I would, you know, as a business owner, I'm worried about the tax too. I'm worried about the fact that I might have to pass on these taxes to tenants, which I would never want to do anyway, but like that's just kind of the way that this works. And I would much rather my increased tax burden to go toward paying for 24/7 community paramedic services or any other service like that that the city should already be, you know, responsible for. So in the end, I just want to say, like, whose safety is this actually providing or ensuring? Is it people like that are going to be here for one weekend? Is it going to be tourists? Do we just want to make them feel safe while they're, you know, visiting? Or do we want to actually like cater to the locals here and listen to what everyone has to say and, you know, allocate funds in a way that the local business owners and property owners here actually would like them allocated? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Dr. Kyle Teller. I'm a public educator and a resident of Buncombe County. I am urging the council to stop the downtown bid for the following reasons. The bid is not the appropriate response to our city's housing, substance use, and clean public spaces issues. Accessible public sanitation, such as public downtown bathrooms, is an appropriate response. Affordable housing is an appropriate response. Sharps containers, and continuing to build, as everyone here has echoed, the paramedics partnerships. The bid also gives mostly power to wealthy downtown property owners, most of whom we've heard as the supporters tonight. I want to highlight who we've heard in favor and primarily against. Most of the workers we have heard from tonight, if not all of them, have spoken out against the bid. Those with the high income and multiple properties have spoken in favor. Please pay attention to who is speaking in favor and against. Those who are most at risk are speaking perhaps passionately because they are at risk. So, the bid gives most power to wealthy downtown property owners, not renters, not small business owners, and not downtown workers. The tax increase will disproportionately impact small business owners, renters, and our workforce while keeping them out of those seats of power. I saw the adjustment. That adjustment is not far enough. The true root problem with this is that increased taxation that will force out those populations. Now, the bid also lacks transparency. I keep hearing the word framework. I keep hearing inclusivity. Those are not defined enough for my liking. Frankly, as a public educator, and I do this nationally, and I work in equity, unless your policy is equitable, that training will not be effective. That is not an appropriate resource or funding response. The bid promotes further marginalization of our city's most vulnerable communities through its Clean and Safe program. Again, my work is not only in public education, but cultural studies and research. Clean and Safe has been a dog whistle against marginalized communities for so many decades. This is so founded. You can even just Google Scholar any article you want and find this. So, the bid lacks clarity and consideration of the impact through this vagueness. Other people have directly quoted some of this, such as any activities deemed out of the ordinary or those who appear antisocial. These are too vague and increase the promotion of discriminatory practices. Downtown ambassadors are not equipped to address the effects of our housing crisis. De-escalation training for people who are not experienced, who are not crisis counselors, who are licensed or paramedic trained responders are not going to be trained enough to respond to the crises we see downtown. And these crises are caused from a lack of housing and substance use disorders that need empathetic responses to our neighbors. Further, the rising costs of living and working downtown in Asheville continue to exacerbate and highlight our city's deeper issues, a lack of living wages and affordable housing in a tax and rent hike-driven city. The bid proposes that workers sanitize downtown. This work can be done by our public sanitation workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rawlings. I live in Asheville. And as I've been wondering about bids, I dug into the research about bids, reading papers from think tanks and from peer-reviewed journals. And it's interesting, despite what I've heard a few times this evening, a lot of the papers that I read found that the economic benefits of bids are mixed. Some papers are like, yeah, they're awesome. Some papers say that they don't do very much. I also found, which was mentioned earlier tonight, that bids cause property values to rise. In one study, 15% more than the rest of the city. And while owners may see this as a boon, this will make living in Asheville more difficult, increase homelessness, and harm small businesses. Renters will be harmed by the property values going up unless there is something done to mitigate that. But a paper from UC Berkeley gave me one question I would really like to pose tonight to everyone. Do bids, or does this bid, offer attractive events and services to support all within their boundaries, or do they help and attract some at the expense of others? The research says that more often than not, they exclude. They bring in some people and push out others. But what would a bid look like that served all within its boundaries? Not this. Maybe there could be a bid that had services for unhoused neighbors, instead of just moving them around to other parts of the city. Private businesses should not be the ones to regulate and control public space because their vested interest is in their bottom line and not necessarily in building our community. It's not in belonging. I just want to read a couple more things that I found in these papers. This one is from a paper called 50 Years of Bids from the Urban Studies Journal. While some studies examined whether bid tactics reduced crime rates, many scholars argued that these supposed crime control strategies are used to protect an image of clean and controlled environment rather than reducing crime. They're a form of image-oriented policing that attempts to enhance consumption activity by dispelling fears associated with urban disorder and homelessness. And bids facilitate information flows and a privileged platform of communication between actors above, such as urban planners, developers, politicians, the people in charge, to legitimize their enforcement of power and gentrification over low-income residents who are below. I really hope that you vote no on this. Could be ways that this could be done well, but until we consider the entire community that's living there and how everyone can benefit, this is not it.
Hi, I'm relatively new to Asheville, just living here 3 months, but I've been coming here as a street artist for about 15 years over the years. And I've traveled the country for nearly 30 years as a street artist. I've been on the street level and I've watched scores of dilapidated urban environments enriched and brought to life by artists and craftsmen and local businesses alike, only to be bought up by real estate conglomerates, big business, and sold out by power-hungry governments. I came to Asheville to retreat from those non-communities. I want to say big up to the real heroes in the Asheville, the fire department. As a guy who spends hours on the street, 4 to 10 a day, I see them constantly responding to health and safety issues. But as for Asheville police, I see only one or two units or more a day sitting on the same block for hours and hours in multiple spots. Recently, while doing my juggling magic show, I was assaulted by a meth addict. Responding Officer Bailey, 4020 badge number, refused to apprehend the perpetrator, who was still in view with multiple witnesses, because I refused to give him my social security number. If police are unwilling to do their job, what will ambassadors do? I see multiple officers playing chess on taxpayers' dollars and taking mascot dogs for walks. If this is how city manages resources, what will unaccountable bids be up to other than selective enforcement? I've seen bid ambassadors in other cities such as San Diego constantly violate civil rights of residents, throw gang signs, and represent actual street gangs with their verbiage. Bids have replaced organized crime protection rackets and are unaccountable to no one but those that pay them, and those are usually the real estate conglomerates and big businesses. One of the biggest bids I've seen in the nation is in the Tenderloin of San Francisco, and that place sucks. And literally see their employees sell drugs while in uniform, and who knows what other criminal activity they allow if the envelopes are filled right. They may wash shit off the streets every night, but they do nothing but sweep the real problems under the rugs while fleecing the people until only the corporations remain to pay their extortion rates and leave the citizens strung out along the sidewalks. I was recently trespassed from all parks for juggling in Pritchard Park, encouraged by Officer Bailey, Asheville Park and Rec, through the Asheville Park and Rec Rangers and wardens. They violated my constitutional rights, and I will be bringing suit. What will low-paid ambassadors of a bid be doing? Government should be accountable to their electors, not installed by big business. Pensions should be withheld from officials who violate the constitutional rights of their employers. Are there policies and ordinance the city managers put in place, such as no performing in parks and others, bringing in so many suits that they need a private entity as buffers to their public image and deflections to their lawsuits?
Thank you, Mr. Bluth.
Hello, City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Kira Kavanaugh, a resident of the Sawyer Motor Building, just a couple blocks away, and I'm here tonight to ask you to vote no against this bid. As a downtown resident, I do not feel heard. Sending out information about informational meetings is not the same as listening, gathering feedback, and inviting input. And what does clean and safe mean? I thought it was interesting that it's a documented dog whistle, because that's how I felt the first time I heard it. If I wanted to live in a city that's safe and clean, which I read as homogeneous and white, I would have moved to Greenville, South Carolina. I've lived downtown here for 2 years. We moved from the Chicago area. I've never felt unsafe. My husband and I go for a nightly walk. We've walked all over the area, including all the way down French Broad. So what does it mean to feel unsafe? Does it mean walking by someone who's yelling loudly or mumbling a request for assistance? We don't have a graffiti problem. We have an opportunity to address homelessness, mental health, and substance abuse disorders, and we have underserved communities that need our help. But the bid specifically excludes addressing homelessness, which is one of our biggest challenges in Asheville. So like your $500,000 toilet, you're ready to divert $1.25 million to still not address the actual problems facing our city. I ask you to stop this and to prioritize the recommendations made last January by the National Alliance to End Homelessness. You've made very little progress on those recommendations, which, if well underway, would have started to address some of the concern that I fundamentally believe is energizing this bid in the first place. This bid creates another bureaucracy to address the issues that the current city bureaucracy is incapable of addressing. And if you really want another $1.25 million to address these issues, then please raise our taxes and earmark the money for the public servants you heard here tonight who are in charge of caring for our city so that they can be in charge of making the city safe and clean. You've mentioned you'd issue an RFP for an oversight of the bid, but it was clear in the presentation that I saw in early April that it was a foregone conclusion that the ADA and the chamber would be in charge. So I think if you really don't believe that that's the case, I think they need to be told that. There also needs to be a limit put in place to create accountability or criteria for potential tax increases. For us, it would be about $1,000 a year and then another $50 every year. And what will be the responsibility or the criteria for those increases? I worry that this money can also be redirected to development and other agendas supportive of business, not residents, since they'll have majority seats on the board. And small independent business owners, like me, are oftentimes barely hanging on with rising rents. Having to pay and then apply for hardship is unrealistic. Many are hanging on and won't qualify for whatever the hardship requirements will be, which will then force them out, and here come the larger chains, and then I should have moved to Greenville. So please vote no and prioritize the recommendations of the National Alliance to End Homelessness now. Take your responsibility for addressing the needs of our underserved population seriously by prioritizing that now. Creating a new bureaucracy is simply a way for you to continue to ignore the core responsibilities to address the voices of your constituents. And where on earth is the mayor? It speaks volumes that she's not here.
It's Passover.
Thank you for hearing us out. I just want to say, to start with, I was really insulted by your comment that suggested that our opinions are unconsidered and like off the cuff and rote, and that we haven't considered why we might be against the bid. Because I think that, judging by what I've heard here tonight, there are a lot of people who are much more, much brighter and well-spoken than I'm going to be, who have really done their research and really considered the ramifications of this bid. For me personally, some of it's financial. I'm an artist. I have worked very, very hard, usually 14 hours a day, to be able to get to a point where I can live in downtown Asheville. And I love it, and I'm very excited to be here. But I find this tax to be unacceptable. It's taxation without representation, and I don't think that's right. Perhaps there's something I don't see. But I feel like if the businesses downtown want a cleaner Asheville, go out in front of your business and clean it up. We had a business when I lived in Bakersville. We went out every day, swept the sidewalk in front of our building. If there was trash, we picked it up and threw it away. If the trash can on the corner was full, we took it out and we took it to the dump because we cared about our city. When the city needed to have flowers planted, we put a committee together and we planted flowers on the bridge to make it pretty. I don't see any reason why Asheville downtown businesses can't do that. Maybe that's what the Downtown Business Associations should spend their time doing instead of sitting around spending the city's money to get a study that tells them something that they already knew from 10 years ago. I think it's very disappointing. I feel like they could do better, but they want to take our money and use it to enhance their businesses. I mean, I love local business. I'm a local business person. I have my own business. My partner has his own business. We work very hard, but we don't want to spend our money on a taxation that won't help us, won't solve any of the problems, and is a completely, it's too nebulous, you know? We don't know what we're getting for that money. I think that everyone in the city enjoys what happens in downtown Asheville. If you need the more tax money to keep the downtown clean, to pay our firefighters and policemen and mental health workers, then tax the whole city, tax the whole county, because we are the county, aren't we the county seat? Our city buildings are here. Let's tax the whole city. Thank you.
Council members, I speak to you today having spent several years working downtown hospitality as an employee, not a business owner or even a manager, just an employee, which might be a shock given how many of us have voiced our unequivocal support for this bid. But it is through slammed weekend doubles as a server and graveyard shifts in front of a flat top that I urge you to reject it. The amount of warning signs which back mine everyone else's concerns is staggering, as has been amplified by extended testimony. Vague language and misrepresented taxation by proxy all but predict what this proposal will lead to. The homeless being targeted and brutalized, a glaring precedent set for both civil and labor rights violations, including one that's currently being answered for through a lawsuit against a company whose name is on this proposal, just a general piss-poor allocation of taxpayer dollars. This is not a rush to strike down a proposal before we've heard it out. This entire evening has been an attempt to prevent its rushed approval before we are heard out. This proposal is a thinly veiled attempt to clear out the riffraff. It disregards so many who live and work here. The shift meals I've given to people on the street have been a greater contribution towards this community than that proposal could ever hope to be. Please reject this bid. And it is pronounced Freireich. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Linda Buckley, and I am a resident of downtown Asheville. We actually just moved here about 9 months ago, and I love being here. I want to, on a general note, say, as a resident, as opposed to a business, I honestly don't see a benefit to me for the extra tax money I'll be paying. I want to say that when I first heard about this, that second line up there, local improvements, I got a little bit excited because I thought it might address a concern I have, but it's become very clear to me that's not part of the agenda for it. As you can see, I walk with a rollator walker. And yes, most of the Asheville curbs have the curves down. But when you get to the bottom of that, often the asphalt's not there and my wheels would get stuck. And I'm always lifting my walker up. Or there'd be places where the sidewalk, there's like a 2-inch thing. That's like hitting a brick wall when you walk with a walker. And I'm right now in front of one of the government buildings down on Cox Avenue. There's some kind of cover or grate cover or something missing, and there's just like this square hole. It's about 2 inches deep. It's been there for a few weeks. So I have to say, I had to get a new walker. My old one was wearing out, so I bit the bullet, put the big money in, and got what I call my 4-wheel drive model. It has the great big wheels on the front, so now I can go a lot better. But I love being downtown where I can walk everywhere. But it really is a struggle a lot of the times for me. And I want to say that I'm probably not the only person who walks with a walker or uses a wheelchair. And I'm sure a lot of the people that come to visit Asheville, the tourists that everyone's so interested in, there are many of those people who have handicaps of some type, disabilities. So, you know, the one word I do hear is welcoming. He wants Asheville to be more welcoming. Well, Asheville needs to be welcoming to everyone, even those with disabilities. So.
Hello, Council. My name is Bree Snyder. I would like to begin by asking you to refrain from looking at your phone or scrolling Facebook or email while the people you represent speak. It is humiliating, honestly. UC Berkeley Law School conducted and published data supporting that bids increase violence on homeless populations. Bid policing activities can violate state, federal, and international law. Federal courts have held it is cruel and unusual punishment to see homeless people as criminals simply for doing what they have to live. It is unavoidable to sleep. I don't know if you've tried. These districts also violate domestic and international property and speech law. The bid is undemocratic. It has been shown to increase violence on our most vulnerable community members, such as our gender nonconforming, our trans, and our homeless community, who are out of the ordinary, potentially. I beg you to vote no on any type of bid and leave with you who the hell are you helping? Because your only supporters are those set to directly profit from the bid. These business owners will not be paying the bill. They will pass that cost down to their guests and down to their employees. They will not pay for this. So who the hell would the bid help? You want to know why non-business owners are upset and distrusting? It's because we have a whole lot more to hell to lose. We are up here fighting for our living and for our literal homes, as we cannot afford to pay rent in this town. They are fighting for extra profits on top of the profits they are already making on our backs. So I ask you yet again, and I'll leave you with yet again, who the hell is this bid helping? Thank you.
You did such a great job with my name. It is Emily Argonada. Emily Argonada. I had some things prepared, sort of, but I want to speak to the fact that I'm a native also, and someone noted there's not been a lot of us up here. I'm different from those natives in the sense that I don't have generational wealth. I'm the first person that has grown up and lived here, and my parents moved from elsewhere to here, to raise me here specifically, because they felt it would be a safe and clean and beautiful place. The insurance policy that they had was at that time, and I'm 42, okay? I'm claiming that right now, was that we cared about each other. And I know that may sound corny, it may sound cliche, but it is really how I feel when there's been things said about how the Chamber and the Downtown Association wants to roll up their sleeves. I'm not sure what sleeves they've got to roll up. I haven't seen them like I have seen the Public Works employees that have theirs rolled up. And if you look on the Asheville City website for who's hiring, it was spoken about how the Downtown Association representative notated that a professional housekeeper is what they're looking for. Well, they're looking to pay a professional housekeeper and be managed with this $1.4 million when there are openings for custodians and laborers that are $18.25 an hour. There are recreation support, temporary seasonal employees for $18.25 an hour, no benefits. These are the people that our city, we are showing and demonstrating what their worth is by what we are offering to pay them. And if the professional housekeepers are not getting a fair wage, a living wage in our city, but we're willing to pay an outsourced private group, much like something that happened similarly with Ramada, which we trusted an outside source group. And I would hate for something like that to happen again. I just want to speak also, there's plenty of articles, and we'll send them to you, but it's important to note that one of the studies that were done in DC as a part of this, from the Racial Equity Impact Assessment by the Friendship Heights Business Improvement District Amendment Act of 2023, the DC Council Office of Racial Equity says basically that it does not address historical patterns of exclusion, but renews skewed patterns of wealth creation. Thank you, Council, for your...
Hi. I have lots of feelings about this. I wasn't planning on speaking anything tonight because I have some pretty intense social anxiety. I could be one of those people that is labeled as out of the ordinary. I'm transgender. I struggle with mental health things, and I really like this place that I'm getting to know. I'm curious about how many of these people who say that they are scared and afraid to be on these streets, how many of those people have actually formed connections and have attempted to see past a homeless person's grime, a homeless person's cardboard sign? Have they reached out and said something like, "How was your day?" And I'm getting past myself. I think a lot of us are passionate about this because we care, and yeah, that's all.
Well, I know we don't respond to public comment, but I just wanted to speak generally to just thank you for showing up. I work downtown as your council member. I commute through downtown almost every day with some of our most vulnerable neighbors at the transit center. I see people on their way to weddings and funerals and getting their groceries, and I just know we could do better at taking care of each other. I want to support our local businesses. I want to take care of our mountain home. I'm hearing like a thread, and I think Nina spoke to it, just a touch of it, was I see the impact of over-reliance on tourism, the burden on our infrastructure, the displacement of our neighbors, and the extraction of our tax dollars. And I wonder, what would it look like if we had some of that money to invest in our community? How powerful would it be? That's the question I think I have for the chamber. That's what we can carry back tonight for now. Is the chamber willing, and the Downtown Association willing, to get behind our legislative agenda and ask for those resources that are in that legislative agenda that would benefit all of us? We don't have our sales tax revenue that we generate. We don't have our hotel occupancy taxes are going into advertising for more people to come here when we can't take care of the people and the visitors here. Like, I think we're all witnessing that struggle. And I'm not okay with just piling on taxes on top of taxes when it's like the cost is just too high. But it's been a long time since I've worked downtown. I used to work in the service industry until 3 or 4 in the morning, because cleaning up Beer City, USA, it doesn't happen before 3 in the morning. And you're cleaning up a whole huge dance party and everyone just had an awesome time and left you a nice mess in the bathroom. There's not transportation at that hour. It's hard to like find folks who are, working the grill and like to walk each other home and to wait for each other. And my coworkers did that, but I haven't had that experience in a long time as like my paying job. And so for everybody who's struggling to make ends meet tonight and came down here and spent all these hours, it means the world to me. It really does. So thank you.